Welcome to Prime Life. We call it Retirement 2.0. Leave each episode with tips and new ideas to help you navigate retirement in our new age. It's your time. Make it count.
This podcast is for educational purposes only. It is not intended as medical, investment, or financial advice. We do not sponsor or endorse any of the individuals, companies, products, or services featured on this podcast. Any statements or opinions expressed are of the individual who makes them. We hope you enjoy the episode.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Prime Life Podcast. I'm Mary Crean, and I'm your host today. And I have to say, I do have an exceptional guest. This is her second time on our podcast. She was so outstanding that we said, come back again, please, please, please. And she said yes. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Catherine Chadwick. She's also known, and I think this is new, Catherine, as the Queen of Radiance. She teaches people the basics of how they operate energetically so that they can participate effectively in the body-mind experience to live in well-being and with vibrancy. Catherine has been a nurse for over 45 years. She's a practitioner of applied positive psychology, one of my favorites, a certified transformational coach, and a corporate wellness guide, and is the creator of the Sunshine Quotient, which, Catherine, you'll have to talk a little bit about that so our listeners know what that is. But without further ado, Catherine, tell our audience a little bit, maybe more about yourself, what's different since the last time you were on the Prime Life podcast.
Mary, thank you so much for having me here today. It's always such a pleasure to be with you, and it's just such a delight, right? So,
right back at you.
Really happy to be here. Thank you. You know, I have a very high level of curiosity, creativity, so it's always a progression, right? And so what's also interesting is that everything that I'm doing always comes back to the Sunshine Quotient and the basis of how we operate energetically. And there are certainly offshoots of that. I have found that it has made such a difference in my life to work with myself energetically that I make better decisions for myself now. And that's why I'm really so passionate about teaching other people. And the Sunshine Quotient is a really fun project. It's a fun concept. Sunshine Quotient is actually a term that refers to lighting gradients in photography and radiology. And when I started getting this information about this and thinking about it, it's just like, wow. I know how I feel about it. How do I articulate it? And when I found out what the actual definition of it is, I thought, oh, this is just fabulous because we are electromagnetic beings. We are light beings. So let's augment what we already are and learn to work with that. And I started using it as a teaching tool. Working with people, teaching them about mindfulness and the beauty of using breath work as a self-regulatory tool. And when it's an age-old concept of visualizing that you're bringing in the light, breathing in the light. And when you do that, it's really pretty fun because when you feel that you're actually glowing from the inside out and it raises your vibration. And when you think about that light also engaging your vagus nerve through the breath, and the vagus nerve is connected to almost every organ in your body. And it also invites the parasympathetic, the calming side of your nervous system to engage. And so the breath work is such a beautiful self-regulatory tool. It's a beautiful mindfulness tool that brings you back to yourself, and you don't need anything but you. And so I just really love it. I love working with it. I use it myself. I have fun with it. I believe that other people have fun with it. And when you think about all the research that is being done on heart-brain coherence and the importance of that, it's just another little tool that you can have in your, toolkit that you can use, and it's very effective.
What I'm intrigued by, the sympathetic nervous system in terms of the vagus nerve, the connections, because when many folks, I think, hear that, they think fight, flight.
Mm-hmm.
They also maybe think of heart rate, racing, cortisol, and all those things that perhaps have a not so great impact on the body, especially as we age. So I would love for you to talk a little bit more about why that is so important in terms of how we can learn to regulate that.
Well, when we engage the calming side of our nervous system, we can actually lower our heart rate, we can lower our blood pressure. And what's fascinating to tie that into learning ourselves energetically is that everything has an energetic value to it. And every thought, every emotion, every action has an energetic value to it. And when we're running on stress hormones, because all of these thoughts, emotions, and actions invite a chemical cocktail reaction within our body. And when we are stressed continuously and these stress hormones are being invited to really go gangbusters within our body cannot function the way it's designed to. And yes, we do have fight or flight because that is part of what helps to keep us safe, right? Because when when that car is speeding around the corner, you want to have your senses so that you're not going to step off that curb. And there are other things, there are people that trigger us, and that can cause our stress hormones as well. So when we can learn to regulate energetically what we choose to think, what we choose to and what we choose to do. And I'm not saying that this all comes automatically because we don't have any control of the thoughts that may float into our mind. We do have a choice as to whether we are going to entertain that thought, because the thought is then going to invite an emotion. And the other thing that's fascinating too is the research shows that the average lifespan of an emotion is 90 seconds or less, and only up to 2 minutes. And it's that loop, that negative default bias that we all have that we can learn to work with, that, when we catch ourselves in that loop and you've been on the same thought for like several hours, it's like, whoa, now wait a minute. I have a choice because I can make a change. And so then it's so easy to come back to the breath. Because when you bring yourself back to the present moment, everything's pretty good in the present moment.
I absolutely agree with that, 100%. How do you teach others to skillfully do that? Because, right, those are habits that we have. Maybe some of the ones that aren't so good. So how do you teach individuals to be able to monitor that, see it coming, and then regulate it?
And we'll get that answer after a brief word from our commercial sponsors.
NASA is always working harder to be your carrier of choice. We offer insurance products that can help you meet your retirement goals, such as protecting your savings, securing lifetime income, or paying for healthcare costs. We're dedicated to providing best-in-class service and are keeping things simple, and we'll have your back. We have around 400,000 policyholders and contract holders and have been doing this for a long time, 170 years, but we remain humble enough to always try to improve. For more information, visit nfg.com. Nassau Insurance products are issued by Nassau Life and Annuity Company of Hartford, Connecticut, Nassau Life Insurance Company, East Greenbush, New York, or Nassau Life Insurance Company of Kansas, Overland Park, Kansas. Subsidiaries of Nassau Financial Group. Products are not available in all areas. Policyholder counts are for all Nassau companies as of September 30th, 2022, and are subject to change?
What's interesting is that it is a bit of a process in that everything that we do builds a level of self-awareness. And I believe it takes making a decision to raise that level of awareness and making the decision to be consistent, to evaluate. And I have a fun little process that I love to teach people because in some arenas it's referred to as the witness. I've kind of moved that over to being a curious observer, right? And so creating a relationship with your own curious observer, we can get an awful lot of information. And that curious observer takes some of the emotion out of it and it takes some of the judgment out of it, right? It takes some of the sting out of it. If I can ask myself, what was I thinking at the time that I made the decision to do X, Y, or Z, right? And that didn't seem to turn out very well. And I'm like, well, okay, because what I chose to do without really even thinking about it, running on a subconscious program, right? An old habit, I may have repeated something that really doesn't serve me. And then it's just like, oh, well, there it is again. And then I have an opportunity to say, oh, okay, I am removing that and I'm going to replace it with something else that does serve me. And so I believe that changing habits means creating a new one to replace an old one that is outdated, is maybe tied to an old belief that wasn't even mine to begin with, right? And so it takes us several different directions, but it always brings us back to what thoughts do I choose to entertain that allow me, invite the emotions that I want to feel. And that doesn't happen automatically all the time either, because we get fabulous information from emotions that might rush right through us that doesn't feel very good, but that rush of adrenaline has a lot of information in it. And we can use that moving forward to make a better decision for ourselves.
That's very intriguing. And you and I did chat about that at one point about replacing that thought that we want that no longer serves us, or maybe that's not healthy. What are some of can you give us some examples? Can you give us a few more examples when you've worked with individuals?
There was a gal that was having a very hard time with stopping the smoking. And she desperately wanted to. She couldn't put in place the steps that were going to serve her. It was just a habit, right? And so it's like, okay. So instead of going for the candy, going for, the ice cream or eating something to replace the craving, what else can you do to replace that, right? So we came up with a system that every time she felt the urge to go for that cigarette, she would just put her hands on her heart and take a few breaths. And that replaced the craving for the cigarette. And it didn't happen overnight, but it was really amazing. It only took several weeks for her to go, wow, this feels so good.
That is amazing. And I haven't heard of that before. We all know that there are many smoking programs or cessation programs that individuals take place in, but I really love what you just shared. And I think that's pretty intriguing. Can you share with us, Catherine, what you mean by learning how we operate energetically? Can you go into a little bit more detail? I know you kind of covered it a little bit.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because they can actually measure the energetic value of different thoughts and different emotions. And because we are electromagnetic, the thoughts have an electrical charge. And the emotions are the language of the body, basically. And the body is part of the subconscious mind, which is an interesting concept to think about too, right? And the emotions have a magnetic charge to them. So that's why the heart-brain coherence is so important, to have an open channel. The heart actually sends more messages to the brain than the brain sends to the heart, because we think of the brain as being the center point all the time. And when you can think of yourself as knowing that thoughts of blame, anger are running at a lower vibration on the emotional energetic scale. The Omega Institute has a beautiful image of the emotional energetic scale, and it will tell you the values of these emotions that are associated with this scale. And when you're operating at those levels, you're not operating at a very high energetic level. And when you can have that visual in your mind and say, all right, what's one thing I can think, or one thing that I can choose to feel? What's one thing I can choose to do that will take me even just one step up the scale, right? Because the body, getting back to the stress hormones, the body cannot function when we're playing the blame game for any great length of time, or the anger game, or the envy game, or any of that. Even getting up to acceptance and reason is a huge step up, right? And the other interesting thing to understand also is the body plays in this cycle too, because the body actually influences the thoughts, because the body gets into a habit also. And it's like those old programs that are running that are not serving us any longer. The body's used to it. And it's, even when it's not serving us well, it's just like, well, this is what we're doing today. And it doesn't have to be that way, right? And I'm not saying to, stop going to the doctor, taking care of yourself, but I do believe that there is a beautiful East meets West connection that we can each use for ourselves. And I believe that it gives us the freedom of accepting a little bit more responsibility for our level of health, because there are things that we can do.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with you 200% this time, not 100%, because and we've talked about this, right?
Mhm.
Eating better, more healthier foods, exercise, the breathing. And I've shared with you that personally, I do breathing exercises
Mhm.
to lower my heart rate. And I guess the interesting thing is, while I've been a lifelong exerciser, that hasn't changed since, a very long time ago. I think I started really when I was like 19 years old, which was a long time ago. But these other things about meditating, which I didn't do when I was younger, trying to lower my heart rate, those kinds of things.
Mhm.
As individuals get older, from a hormonal standpoint, especially with women, like how does that impact some of the challenges that we may have within the body, and how the body responds to stress, a change of lifestyle, we have changes, people retire, they unretire, they have more perhaps loss of family members, etc. How does that all come into play?
It's fascinating that you bring up retirement, because by the time I was 23 years old, I was the charge nurse of a small intensive care unit in Florida. And the trend at that time was for people to, they would get to 65, they would retire, get the gold watch, sell the house, moved to Florida. Many of these folks didn't know anybody in Florida. All of their friends were back wherever they, came from. They're kind of a fish out of water, so to speak. They've run out of purpose. Most of them have not established a new purpose for their life. They're kind of bouncing around, going to one early bird special after another. And all of the habits that went along with that corporate life, many of them were very stressful. And now, what do I do with myself? And the eating habits continue. The eating is not necessarily all that great. All of these things come into play. And quite often you would see one of the couple come in with the proverbial heart attack or the stroke. And if they survived, the spouse was either a widow, a widower, or a caretaker. And it only took a few months to see the cycle, because it wasn't long after that the one that was the caretaker or the one that was left on their own was in with their own catastrophic health problem. And I'm like, oh, my. I'm never going to retire because if this is what retirement is, I'm not interested, right? And I think it's imperative that people understand that self-care is not necessarily the commercialized version, the societal version of self-care. When you think about your body as being your vehicle while you're in this life experience, there are a lot of things to pay attention to. And the hormones, as you mentioned, it is one of them. And when things change, it's important to understand how to work with the body to help accommodate those changes. And there are times when we may want some pharmaceutical assistance. That doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a life sentence. But if you break your ankle, you want that walking boot or you want that cast, and you're going to use it while you need it. But that gives you the opportunity to learn your body on a different level and to be able to work with it in a different way.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I love what you said about the retirement piece, because that's exactly my mantra. I'm not going to retire. I don't plan on retiring. I'm going to work as long as I can. And maybe my work will shift. Like, who knows? And that's okay. Mm-hmm. And I'm married to the same guy for quite a bit of time. And he's actually starting to take a course for his PhD. And he is definitely older than 55 plus. And his mantra is, I'm going to work as long as I can until they kick me out. And again, I don't know. This is not, for me to judge per se. People think, oh, I'm going to retire. I'm going to travel. Great. I'm going to play golf or pickleball. But even that can get, I think, a little bit like monotonous. And I really love what you said earlier. And I still hear this and see this. I'm going to move to, now I hear like the Carolinas, for example. Mm-hmm. And my question to them is, do you know anyone there? Right. And a lot of times it's no, I don't. And then you think, we talk about this on our podcast quite a bit, loneliness, isolation. Then you lose perhaps your purpose. And then it's hard.
It is.
And it's hard. So we do hear that one of the major faux pas as people do think about retirement planning or retirement is making a decision to move somewhere where they just think, oh, it's beautiful. I'm going to be near the beach. Mm-hmm. I'm going to have a great, little house or big house or whatever. That's my dream. But they don't think of the other things that I think you've touched upon and that I just mentioned about, do you know anyone? Do you have any family there? What's going to take up your time? Et cetera. And all that can have an impact on our health, our lifespan as we age.
I believe it's imperative to have a purpose.
I agree with that.
And It's funny what you were talking about your husband now taking a course. I turned 70 the end of March, and I'm in a master's to PhD program in integrative medicine because I love learning. I think curiosity is one of the things that serves us so well. Because when we're learning all the time, we're interested in things, and there's never a question of I'm bored. What am I going to do today? All of those
Yeah, no,
things. I've got clients to work with. I've got things to do. I've got things to study. I have things to learn. And it's just like, oh my gosh, this is fabulous. And when we don't have a purpose, I think that we kind of are. I love that analogy of a ship lost at sea and just being tossed around in the waves. And wherever the wind blows them, who knows where you're going to end up. And I believe it's important to be open to new information because new information comes to us continuously. I think it's important to be able to feel the freedom to change your mind, to change your direction, because then you get to go in a direction that is meaningful to you. When life doesn't have much meaning to us, then we don't become meaningful to ourselves. And that is not a healthy way to go through our life.
Yeah, and I know part of that curiosity and learning new things, and my husband, by the way, is not far behind you, is it does do a lot of positive things. And again, you're a nurse, so you know all the intricacies, the physiology behind that, what it does for the brain. And we've had other guests on talk about the power of learning new things to do, technologies, because we can't live without technology. It's just not realistic, basically, the way we have to bank or shop or whatever. And also just learning new facts, or, oh, I'm going to learn how to cook XYZ, or I'm going to learn to play pickleball, or whatever that new adventure is. It's like what we say with like fitness, right? It's that muscle memory, and it keeps the blood flowing and it keeps us vibrant. And, as you talk about energy and all of that in our body, it definitely comes together for me. And by the way, Catherine, you are a remarkable role model for individuals. But I'd really like to know, and I'm sure our guests want to know, how did you become known as the Queen of Radiance? Which that was not the phrase when we first interviewed you back in the day.
Well, it was really funny because I've been working on this project, and I walked into a room, and this woman looked at me and she goes, "Oh my gosh, you're just like the Queen of Radiance." And I'm like, "Oh, I have a sunshine project."
It's perfect. She must have known. There's no such thing as a coincidence, though. We all know that.
Well, but what's fascinating too is your level of vibration dictates your level of radiance. We all experience it. I mean, when we're walking down the street, you can see the sunbeam coming at you, or you can see the storm cloud coming. And so, how we enter a room, how we connect with people, is very much through vibration. And the beauty of that also is, I believe, when you're running at higher vibrations, you're open to more of the information that is coming to us. And when you're talking about learning new things, the brain is neuroplastic, right? We have the opportunity to create new neural pathways when we learn new things. That's a fabulous thing to understand. For instance, if Joe goes to the grocery store the same way for 10 years, he has no idea what's going on 2 blocks over, right? And it could be that there's a marvelous new shop there that he wants to buy a new fishing pole at, and he has no idea it's there because he hasn't done any exploration, right?
As we kind of wind down our conversation today, what are a couple of practical skills or tools that individuals can take action on, in the very short term that you can share with us today?
I have found that morning is a fabulous practice, just to get up and not go directly to the technology. Get in tune with you before you are out there in the mix with everyone else, I believe, is a beautiful practice. It doesn't have to be hours. It can be 5 minutes, right? But just establishing that practice of feeling grounded, feeling good with yourself before you get out and mix it up with other people. I think that that is a huge benefit for everybody. And, the research does support that meditation is fabulous for self-regulation. And also, it gives you an opportunity to notice some of those thoughts that come in. And I don't have to act on that one, right? I can just let that one go right on by. And I think that it gives us the opportunity to be more selective and more, I like the term, in tune with yourself, because I think that that's why we're here, right?
Mhm.
To be the best that we can be. So I do believe that meditation is good. I've touched on the breath work. I encourage people to actually put an alarm on their phone and practice breath work several times a day, because then when they do get anxious, it comes very naturally to go, oh, all I have to do is breathe.
Mhm.
Before you go into a meeting, before you go into a conversation with somebody, imagine, visualize that you're breathing in the light, that you're radiance, and you're open, and you are open for a resolution, you're open for collaboration, you're open for what their point of view is, because I think listening is healthy. And I think it's imperative to making better decisions, not just for ourselves, but for everybody. And because it always isn't all just about us, it's important to bring our best foot through the door, right? And when you can be in tune with you and walk into that room with openness and radiance, and people take notice of that. And it's interesting that the conversations seem to become more respectful, um, and actually more productive, right?
No, I agree with that. It's almost like a vibe. I know you talked about vibrations, and I know that's a little bit different, but I do think there's a vibe because after you and I chatted a bit ago, I actually tried that a little bit when I was at a large event just to see. And it does work.
Yeah.
It does work. And I was very happy about that. And it was a little bit of a test, but I felt that I felt that I was more myself, but also more relaxed. And I hope that I was more fun to talk to.
That you were, isn't that so
And
fun?
I know, Catherine, you love the word fun and you talk about it a lot. And I crack up because it's such a basic word, but it's such an important word because as we get older, we forget to have fun.
Mhm.
I think we do sometimes, and it's okay to have fun. As a matter of fact, I think it helps and gives us more longevity when we have more fun and we don't take things so seriously.
I think that, I mean, the research shows that laughing, right, marvelous stress reliever, and it's fun to laugh. And I think that if we can also learn to laugh at ourselves,
Mm.
that's an important thing to think of and learn to do as well, because we do have a tendency to take ourselves too
Too
seriously.
seriously.
And I mean, I laugh at myself quite often. It's just like, oh, well, sweetheart, come on.
Yeah, I do agree. I do agree with you. And I think if we could teach younger people, especially to learn to laugh at themselves, I think that's really healthy. And all of us can benefit from that reminder
Mhm.
to be able to laugh at yourself. Because again, I think we do take ourselves too seriously. Now, for the last question before we before I ask you to share what's the best way to get a hold of you, when you were last on our podcast, we asked you, what's your why? So we want to kind of move in a little bit of a different direction.
Mhm.
What is the one thing that you have integrated into your life that has, and it could be more than one thing, that has made an everlasting impact on your positivity, on your healthy vibration? And why do you do it? Besides the fact that maybe you do feel better. I'm just curious.
It's so interesting because I think so many of us go through this process that we have to, I believe, getting back to getting in tune, we have to choose ourselves. And I have found that it took me a long time to put myself first. And I don't mean that in a selfish way, but if I don't take care of myself, I can't expect anyone else to. And if I'm not taking care of myself, I'm not bringing the best version of me into any room, right? And it's been quite a process. And what I love about working with people is that I don't think it has to be such a process, right? I think that we have to give ourselves permission to be ourselves. And each one of us, I believe, has unique gifts, has unique talents, and we all have so much to offer. And we are such creators when we're little. And over a period of time, we're supposed to be whittled down and put in these boxes and put into the educational system and the health system and this system and that system. And it's just like, well, okay, who thought that was such a great idea? Because not all of it is such a great idea. And I believe that there is a huge freedom when we get to the point where we do choose ourselves and say, you know what? I don't know everything. I'm never going to know everything. However, my perspective matters. My voice matters. I can make a difference for me, and I can make a difference for a lot of other people too, if I'm willing to put myself out there.
Well, I love that answer. And putting yourself first, I think sounds a little easier than it is. And I've heard that from many, particularly women,
Mhm.
that it takes them a longer time to do that. I'm still a work in progress doing that. So I really appreciate that you shared that with our audience, because that will resonate with many of our listeners, I believe.
Well, and also, there will be people that will hear this, and the first word that comes to their mind is selfish.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And think about when you're not doing something that somebody else wants you to do,
Mm-hmm.
who's being selfish,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so there's a lot of judgment, I believe, that comes into this. I believe that also the other thing I've found really helpful and useful is to do a little forgiveness work every day. Because we have a tendency to be judgmental of ourselves, of other people, and we make mistakes. We say things that might not be kind at the time. We make the wrong move, may intentionally hurt someone, or we may unintentionally hurt someone. And I believe that forgiveness is something that people don't always fully understand, because it's never about condoning the unkind word or the unkind act or any of that. It's allowing ourselves to be let off the hook so we can move forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right? Because when we don't allow ourselves to move forward, and when you think about the universal energy is always in motion, it works in an upward spiral and it's always moving. And so it's as if the train is always leaving the station.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not on it, you get stuck.
Yeah.
And when we're stuck with a lot of blame, self-judgment, judgment of others, any of those things, it's not serving ourselves and it's not serving anyone to be in that position. Because when we're not healthy, that doesn't allow us the freedom to be a conscious contributor.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that's well said, and I think that's the perfect ending. But before we go, Catherine, if individuals want to get a hold of you to learn more about what you do, the Sunshine Quotient, or they want to contact you because they want you to work with them in any way, shape, or form in the work that you do with health and wellness, what is the best way?
I have a website that includes the Sunshine Quotient information, which is fun to read about. And the name of the website is theartofselfcraftsmanship.org.
That sounds great. And to all our listeners, we appreciate you joining us again on the Prime Life podcast. And we look forward to having you join us again. Feel free to spread the word about our podcast and give us feedback. Tell us what you like and tell us what maybe you don't like. And we appreciate that. Everyone have a great rest of your day. And thanks, Catherine, again for joining me today. It's been a pleasure.
Mary, thank you. It's an honor to spend time with you. Thank you.
Remember to subscribe to the Prime Life podcast anywhere you find podcasts. You can find all of our episodes, contact information, and more on our website, primelifepodcast.com. Stay connected with us. Follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.